Welcome to part 2 of our series on Renaissance women. This one is going to really focus more on the works of women that were attributed to men. This is one of the many works that were attributed to a woman's father. Marietta Robosti Tintoretto painted this, and it was first attributed to her dad, and her monogram was later found on it. The next two were bought by two different museums as the work of Frans Hals, and they turned out to be the work of Judith Leyster, the Dutch artist we spoke about in our first in this series. So Happy Couple was bought by the Louvre in 1893, and soon after they found out that it wasn't a work of Frans Hals as they thought it was, but it was the work of Judith Leyster, and the museum in Berlin bought the Jolly Toper, and they found out the same thing shortly thereafter, that it was not a Frans Hals, but a Judith Leyster. One of the women who had a lot of her work misattributed to some of the really greatest artists of the time, Da Vinci, Van Dyck, Titian, was named Sofonisba Anguissola. And we're not sure that there was anything malicious in the misattributions that were done of hers, but she was just so good, and she painted in that style of the period, and so a lot of her work looked so much like the great artists of the time that it was misattributed to them oftentimes. And we're just learning more and more about that now. Then we come back to the woman from our first video, Artemisia Gentileschi. This one, Susanna and the Elders, was thought until 1977 to be the work of her dad, and we found out that it was hers. I think in this case, her dad was always very supportive of her, so probably the dad did it to try to help her, because in those days, women's art wasn't really marketable the way men's art was. So he probably did that so people would be able to appreciate her work. This is also another one that was thought to be the dad's for a long time, but was later realized to be Artemisia's. And this is a reprisal of one of our favorite pieces, Judith Beheads Holofernes. And another one of her self-portraits. We had Self-Portrait with the Lute in the first of this series, and the second of this series is her self-portrait as a martyr. And again, if you look into her eyes, you can see that hurt that never goes away when something really bad happens to you. So we're thinking that this is just the tip of the iceberg, that there's going to be a lot more work that was done by women that's going to be attributed to men, not for too much longer, because they're going to find out more and more as our technology gets better that a lot of the work was done by Renaissance women and not Renaissance men. There's not always a smoking gun. There's a lot of times now when we have suspicion, but we don't know for sure or positive. Just for example, sometimes an artist will seem to lose his spunk. He'll be over the hill, then he'll meet a woman, and they'll be together for a while, and all of a sudden his work will take on a feminine perspective. It will change, and the woman sometimes will die, and then after that the man doesn't do anything anymore. So it seems like circumstantial evidence would point to that he was taking her work, but we'll have to do that, save that for the next in our series. Thanks.